Jack Nicklaus's greatest 18 holes of major championship golf. No other game can match its graphics or its features. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Joe.
And that is a bold claim from a golf game of all games that no other game up to this point could possibly match its graphics or its features. What is it? Features of I guess Super Mario Brothers does not have mini putt, right? Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you led with that because that was the first. I mean, the features I'm sure we'll get into, but I just want to go off and say that other games have certainly matched and maybe I'll say even surpassed by a lot this game's graphics.
Well, you don't know that.
Oh, I know that.
Oh,
yeah.
What are you talking about, Sean? Are you talking about graphics from a fidelity standpoint, or just visually? You can't look at two games and tell me which one looks better.
I don't know why I said that. What I really want to start off with here is, do we know the actual pronunciation for Jack? Because in my head it's Jack Nicklaus. Is that not correct?
I almost said Jack Nicholson.
I would prefer that.
You think, Jack Nicholson's got to be a golfer. You think the two of them ever get together on a Sunday and just play 18 holes?
I'm sure it's happened, in the Jack Nick society.
Cinematic universe.
Yeah, with Jack Nickman.
I stuck the landing on the pronunciation of the last name for a reason. I did just enough research to know about Jack Nicklaus without ever watching a YouTube clip of how his name is pronounced, because I want people to know that I really don't know a lot when it comes to golf.
Good.
But it seems like you don't either, because you're not quite certain.
I'm not. I think the most exposure to Jack Nicklaus / Nicklaus I have is, I think his grandson played for the Buffalo Bills, but his last name wasn't the same. His first name was Nick. So I was like, oh, cool. But I've never seen him play golf.
That's actually a wild little Easter egg.
Yeah, no, Nick O'Leary, he was a tight end for 3 years. Then he went to the Dolphins.
Huh. The only thing I knew about Jack Nicklaus was I looked him up briefly, only to see if his head is actually as round as it is in this illustration that comes up between holes.
That's the high fidelity graphics right there.
Yeah, it's like they forgot a line. There's supposed to be shading of where it goes into the Z axis, but they forgot a line there, so it all just looks like it's on the same axis or something, and it's very wide face.
I thought the guy kind of looked like Chevy Chase.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
and it's Jack Nicklaus. All right, we're not going to play we're not going to play this game anymore of Nicklaus. You guys can't just because Santa Claus doesn't.
Wait a minute, you said Nicklaus, and I was following you.
I said Nicklaus.
That's who I was talking to when I said you.
Oh, okay.
I was talking to you, buddy.
That's why I specifically didn't say any name, so I could make it about either of you.
It's just a weird way to spell it, that's all.
Did you think he was still alive?
I knew he was alive,
at some point.
In the last 10 to 15 years.
He is still alive. He's still making headlines, actually. As of this recording, just 23 hours ago, Jack Nicklaus lost attempt to regain control of his own name and likeliness. And I only find that funny because he's losing control.
Likeness,
yeah, likeliness, whatever. It's not likely that he'll get that, is what I'm trying to say. I just find it funny about the name thing, because it's maybe he doesn't even want control of his name, because there's debates over how you even say it. Maybe he could rebrand himself as Jack Nicklaus
Jackie Nicky,
and just golf every Christmas with us.
Santa Claus.
There's people who probably say that as well.
I'm sure.
Anyway, long rant, but to get on the actual topic of Jack Nicklaus in the game, can you even play as Jack Nicklaus? I know he's in the game as a computer, Can you ever be Jack Nicklaus? Because I certainly couldn't figure it out.
I mean, I think the sprite for the dude kind of looks like the dude.
Yeah, but do you get
he's
like his stats and his ability?
Are there stats in this game?
Of course there's stats in this game. The women computer players are awful.
Well, sure, because that's just like, what they're supposed to be. But
it's not a great look for the game. It's not a great look. There is one who's like somewhat good and has like other flaws, but there's just two that are just like, in the manual it says they're beginners, they don't know how to play golf. It's like, that's not a great look.
Okay, got it. I just played as I just put my name in, and I check some boxes, and I'm like, okay, that's how you set up the game.
Well, that's because that's how the game starts, Sean. It's a complicated nature of choosing the player you want to be or choosing a player you want to be, because as far as I can understand, you can only create a player. You can never play as any of these pre-generated characters, and you must play as yourself, which that's fine, I suppose. But I guess I thought it was weird that you can't be these assigned characters that you read about in the manual, and instead you must kind of, as you were saying, fill out boxes and type in a name, and that is the player you will play as.
So these other characters, it sounds like, aren't so much other characters with stats as it is like a difficulty mode.
Okay, so let's read like Lars, for instance, okay? Lars calls himself Mr. X and likes to think of himself as an expert. Yeah.
God
Wait, haven't we had him before?
Yes.
Mr. X.
Kung Fu?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He calls himself Mr. X and likes to think of himself as an expert, which is why he drives from the pro tees. He has a tendency to hook drives and pulls putts to the left. So, yes, it's not like a stats thing, right? Like, it's not RPG based, but I guess it's computer tendencies. So they're saying like he will hook his drives purposefully, like the computer will throw them a little bit.
I get that. All right. It does. I guess it makes sense that they're counting on you and your knowledge of what you should be doing with golf to be like, you don't have to like build your stats up. Like, this isn't an RPG. And they're giving that sort of variation to the computer opponents.
It is 18 holes of golf from all over the world, but as a single course. And that seems like an interesting decision because on the one hand, you're removing the, I guess, filler courses from filler holes from these courses and just keeping the notable ones. Yeah, like you're just filler holes is a funny
it's
sentence.
back when holes were like really episodic and
just being like, well, this one's forgettable.
Yeah.
No, it's like a golf mixtape. I think like if there's a sport where that makes sense in any capacity, it's golf.
Yeah, I want to see a football game where every yard is from a different stadium.
Well, Joe, I think it'd be more interesting, every football stadium is the same, right? So it'd be more interesting if it was like between innings you went to different baseball stadiums.
Yeah, I was joking about the yards, to be clear.
Okay, very good. And then, the two of the courses are designed by Jack himself. They're featured in the game. It's Castle Pines in Colorado and Desert Mountain in Arizona. So I guess, again, another good way to like, get the name that he allegedly doesn't own, or at least doesn't own anymore, into the game. However, I can't separate the idea that they robbed us of 18 potential courses and just gave us 18 overall holes instead.
If you can't play as Jack Nicklaus, as one might assume, then I think the only real value that his name on the box gives the game is the fact that this is a curated list of Jackie's favorite stuff. So, I mean, I also don't know how you'd fit 18 courses in a game like this. Maybe it is not very data intensive, but I like the concept. And especially I like the goofy one-liners he throws before you go to each hole.
I like the concept if I'm a major golf fan, which like maybe most people who are buying this game were, but like I feel like for a casual player who wants to just play golf, I would rather have variety, even like 3 courses or something. And like the gimmick, I'm calling it a gimmick for lack of a better word. I mean, but like of there being a different hole from different courses and stuff is completely lost on me. I don't care. Like, I don't know what these holes are. You can tell me that that's true. I can't verify it, personally. So, even with the high fidelity graphics that look so realistic, I can't tell. But, it's just that I think the average gamer would prefer more variety. Once I'm done with the 18 holes, I'd like to try something else.
Joe, you mentioned the high fidelity graphics, and as they claimed on the back of the box, no game can match its graphics. I would say, as a comment about the graphics, I have never seen an NES game that looks so much like a computer game. And I'm not sure if that's just because of the way it draws on screen the graphics, which, by the way, I thought the whole advantage of cartridges was that they wouldn't have loading, that they're flash carts and everything just
here's the
happens
thing.
instantly.
This is what I found kind of fascinating at the same time as incredibly frustrating about this game. And I think what it's doing is it's like procedurally generating the course from like the best that an NES can from like the topography of the course that it has. So it's like, it's not so much loading data as it is trying to calculate what this is supposed to look like at any given moment. And on one hand, like, yeah, I guess wherever the ball lays, you're going to get a different view of the course. But on the other, you're going to wait like a good 5 to 10 seconds before you can actually interact with the game at all. So I found it cool from a tech perspective, but not very... It broke up the flow a lot.
Yeah, now that you describe it, that does sound cool, and that actually makes me feel like, okay, this is the purest they can get on the NES of like to matching this course. It didn't feel like that to me when I was playing. I was kind of like, what the heck is going on here with the way this thing generates on? And it's like so jarring and confusing to see where I am. But I also think that that purity of like accuracy is a little lost due to the fact that the game does not present itself to you intuitively. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. If I compare it to NES Golf, like you got the little screen where you can see the close up of your player. You've got the screen where you can see like the whole course. On that screen where you see the whole course, you see an arrow of which is the direction you're pointing. You can see like your player, like what he's looking at. You see where he's facing. In this, all of that gives you like the context of like where you're looking is like this cursor at the top that just says like now you're facing this way, even though you're not. Or like now you're aiming this way, but it's just like you're just doing this like weird like geometry with this dot that is not a part of the environment of like, okay, I guess this would make me aim sort of that way. Like it takes me out of it completely, I guess. Like I don't feel like I'm looking through the eyes of or through a camera behind my player.
And I'll just real quick disclaim that is a guess, like what I just described. I don't actually know how this game works. That would make sense to me, but if that is what's happening, I guess that would make turning and visually showing you turning in any responsive way kind of off the table. So it has to do this weird, like, okay, now pretend you're facing this direction, and we're going to give you this abstracted little meter above the actual screen as to what it would look like for you to be looking in that direction until you turn so much, and this is something I only learned halfway through a hole 5 or 6, that it now needs to redraw the scene because you're looking like directly to your right now. So I don't know. It seems like this is like trying to put a fully 3D game onto the NES, and it just, there's a lot of drawbacks here.
Yeah, to me it felt like it was like I was witnessing a lot of the math that's supposed to be happening underneath the game.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like I was playing like, it didn't feel like I'm playing golf. It felt like I'm doing the calculations of like, what angle do I need to put this dot that is contextually not related to the scene in order to like, make it go the direction I want it to go.
So the way that the any particular stroke in the golf game works is, and it becomes an issue until you eventually see the flag in the distance. Wherever it generates you, there is a good portion of the screen where you see your player at your current position with the golf ball. And then to the left of you is a power meter that we'll surely talk about in a little bit. And then above you is this kind of like field goal with a ball in the middle that you are moving to direct your swing. So if you move the ball a little bit to the right, allegedly your swing will go a little bit to the right, and then so forth for the left. And then, as Sean was mentioning, if you move that ball all the way to the end of the current posts, the screen will regenerate, and you will be facing more in either the right or left, depending on which extreme you dragged it to. From there, the real issue is that ball that you are controlling above the screen where you are seeing your own golf ball is not one-to-one with the golf ball on the screen. And so you might think, when you're further away, like, on this course, when I checked out the overall view of the map, the hole was more to the right, so I want to, or the green was all the way to the right, so I want to shoot all the way to the right. However, because you're using a driver, since you're just starting on the course, it's more extreme than when you use a putter, and therefore when you are putting, you actually do need to be very extreme with where you place the ball on the edges of these poles. And so it's as complicated as I'm making it sound by painting this visual picture for the listeners' heads. But basically, the easiest way to solve this, in my opinion, was just make where your ball is and where the ball that you're moving from left to right be one-to-one with one another, and then just have the wind be the factor that changes it ever so more. The fact that how far away you are and what driver or what club you're using be the thing that dictates how much this right to left sways could honestly take even a great player a very long time to figure out how precise they should be, because you will just want to move it a little bit away from the flag when you're starting out, and then when you're putting, you might need to be all the way to the right to successfully putt one of these guys in, depending on the break of the putting situation, which is a whole nother thing you have to account for. And we'll get into all the things you have to account for, but I feel like forget about it generating like where you are on the map and trying to visually represent that. There is just an issue with like, there's no real sense of the course other than going back into the menu and checking out the top-down view to see the entire layout, from a top-down angle and being like, oh yeah, that's where the green is. Like, let me adjust my guy. Like, it's not clear from the actual like action screen that you're presented.
Yeah, you kind of do. Like, you would get the feel for how accurate, not so much accurate, but how sensitive these things are if you played this game a lot, I'd imagine. But as it stands now, you do have to do calculus, basically, to figure out how this relates to how it ends up on the screen. And I will stand up a little bit for like the actual visual representation. Like it's probably the most realistic view we've seen, but that doesn't so much mean that it's useful or fun. So yeah, you would have to go back to that menu, just like, oh yeah, okay, now I can kind of make a connection between what this map and this hole look like and what I'm seeing through my digital eyes here. But yeah, I agree.
And then I mentioned the power meter, which is interesting because it's not, the balance of that power meter is not equal at all. And that's something that, might be apparent, but really requires the manual to fully grasp that basically it looks almost like the map for 10-yard fight, where you have like the different yard lines and everything, and then the two touchdowns on the north and south of it. Those are red bars, and basically there are 3 clicks you need to do on your power meter. The first click starts your swing, and then as it goes up, it is indicating your power. However, the power goes from like 0%, 1%, 2%, 3%, 7%, 22%, 44%, 50%, 88%. It's like the 50% mark is a red line that is not in the middle of said power meter. The 50% mark is closer to the top than like, maybe it's like 75% of the way to the top. So, okay, the 50% is the 75%, but then the 100% isn't the full bar. The 100% is the end of the green. You can actually go above 100% into the red zone, the top of the bar, but then that's going to cause you to overswing, and it will, no matter how perfectly you swing, it will, curve your ball a little bit because you overswung, which is, I understand, a mechanic in golf to just swing harder and face the consequences in exchange for gaining more yards. However, a really interesting setback is that in every other golf game we played on the NES for the power meter, even to get to the very top, you have to be precise. If you want to hit 175% like this game lets you, you'd have to click the A button again at the very top. And this game does not do that. You only get one chance. And if you don't press the A button at all, you automatically lock in to 175% of your swing with no chance to like come back down and swing again. It just locks into what is the next A press, the one that controls, well, how straight on did you hit the ball? And that you want to hit as close to where it started at 0% to line up a shot. And again, that could be something that is very confusing to a first-time video game golfer. We have played enough golf games that I think that concept is readily apparent to us, but I wouldn't say that that is obvious. They should probably put a golf ball like next to, like a visual representation of a golf ball next to the 0% to like lock in the idea of like, oh yeah, and then this is where I hit the golf ball. All in all, 3 presses, really just 2 that matter. But technically, if you're just starting off on the beginning of the course and you just want to hit the ball really hard, there's only 1 press that matters, and that's how close you get to 0%.
Okay, so as far as the power meter goes and like how weirdly it's marked, and I don't know, I have some defense for it. Not saying again that it's well communicated, but one would say if they're going for verisimilitude, I think like it looks like it's going on like a logarithmic scale or something, and that sort of makes sense. Like when you're going for a really low power thing, you kind of feel like you have a bit more control over it. Like if you're trying to putt 2 feet compared to if you're trying to putt like 5 feet, you might be able to eyeball that and like muscle memory that with your swing. But if you're trying to really hammer something, but you're trying to, shave however many yards off or add however many yards, like that's going to be really hard to dial in. And I think that kind of makes sense. Like if you are, if you're really whacking something like you would be at the top of this power meter, it's like the variation is going to be much more wild. And so I think that feels a bit more realistic than something that's just going on like a linear scale from 0 to 100, even if there is some sort of like really crush it button. And then I think that the accuracy, or like I guess the hook or pull, is pretty intuitive. Like if you hit too early, then you're gonna move in one direction. If you hit too late, you're gonna move in another. Again, like it could have been communicated more clearly, and I think the other aspects of this game that seem hard, like they're kind of encumbering, like the amount of time it takes to redraw, and the fact that in the distance, it's hard to really tell where your ball is until the game is sort of updating your entire screen. Like that doesn't help with giving you like live feedback. So I don't think that the power meter is crazy bad. It's weird that there's a red line for 50%, and it's a weird spot because I didn't know that was the 50% mark until much later. But it's not the worst design thing in the world.
I mean, I don't think in a vacuum it's the worst thing in the world. I do think that because it's used for every part of this game, it doesn't change. That's what bothers me the most. Where, like, I don't know, I need something different when I'm putting and I'm 3 and I'm 2 feet away from the hole, but like the visual meter didn't change at all. Just like what it represents changes. So like sometimes at my first stroke, I'm hitting the same spot on the power meter as I am for like my putt when I'm like 5 feet away, because now it's like recalculated how much power this means, and like I'm again looking back at NES golf, the putt meter looks different, and I can sort of contextualize it. It's smaller, and I realize like, okay, it's smaller. I need to go a smaller amount, like of the percentage of this bar. But this is just like I feel like I'm just supposed to guess now. Like
I agree. Putting is a completely different game, really.
I feel like even between that, like even when I'm like halfway to the hole, like still going to 50 or going to 100% is like not going to give me the same result as it did on my first putt, like depending on how close I am to the hole. And of course, in other golf games, that's true too. And if you're using a different club or whatever, like it'll have different meters, but it's represented to me. This is just like, okay, yeah, do it again. We've recalculated what everything on this meter means, and it's invisible to you. So like I'm still like kind of confused when that comes up.
I will just add that, Sean, I do agree with you that I do think some of these are actually interesting changes to the way that, the power meter specifically, interesting changes to the way you can play golf on the NES. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're bad. I'm saying it's just, I was just highlighting how different it is from the other NES golf games we've played, and just kind of how, to talk to Joe's point a little bit, how extreme hitting something softly might be compared to hitting something really hard. Like, I think it's really easy to have a great first stroke in any course. Like, it's really easy to hit the ball hard, but it's really hard to perfect like that, 30 feet away and so on section of the game, because it is kind of hard to tell. And yeah, I guess it does help to know percentage points, and the manual does lay them out for you. It does help to know like what's 50% versus what's 100% versus what's 10%, because they do also tell you, specifically if you're on beginner mode, but technically if you're on expert mode, there's an easy way to find out in the manual. They do tell you how hard
100%
each thing can hit 100%. So theoretically, if you're stuck in the sand, but you're only 40 feet away, you could do the math on the, the sand wedge at 100% hits, for the men, it hits 80 yards. So if I'm 40 feet away, I want to hit this thing at 50%, give or take the wind, to get within the realm. It's just, it goes back to what you're saying about sometimes it does feel like you're doing more math than you're doing sports,
Mm-hmm.
like
right.
in baseball games, I never have to think about the kind of things that real life baseball players, like the heads up stuff that real life baseball players have to do. And so I'm not sure why I have to do that in this golf game, like why it can't be a little more laid back and a little more intuitive to the player.
Intuitive is the operative word there, I think, because I think golf, as like in its essence, like the very core of golf is making calculations of how you should hit this thing, because that's really all you're doing. Like there's no twitch reflex. It's all about what's going through your head before you swing and then executing that. So I think that you're always going to have this sort of napkin math be a part of these games. It's just, how do you make that feel more breezy for the player?
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say too, where it's like the intuitive is a good word for it, because like I don't golf, but I got to imagine that like even like the best golfer is not doing numerical math in their head. They're doing intuition math. They're doing visual things. They're saying, okay, if I feel like if I hit it this hard, it'll go this far. And again, bringing it back to NES Golf, like that's what that felt like to me. I was never like, okay, how many yards do I need to hit it? Okay, 15 yards, and at this percentage, that'll be about this. I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, okay, it's about that distance, and the arrow's pointing this way, and the wind's going that way. So I bet I gotta go about to here on the meter, roughly. I'm like, it felt more realistic to like how I would be thinking in golf.
On the other hand, though, I feel like this, like with the percentage points being all over the place on the power meter, I think that makes it almost easier. Like if you're not really focused on being as precise as possible, I think that the way they have it set up makes it easier to kind of just sort of go with what feels right.
I guess what made me have like the problem with that is
the putting.
A couple of times. Well, yeah, the putting, but like a couple of times, like I take my first drive and I go straight to the red line, whatever, and like it gets me so far, whatever. Then I'm putting and I go straight to the red line, and it's a good putt, and I'm like, okay, why didn't I have to adjust anything I was doing to putt? Like if I could close my eyes or block out the other side of the screen and just look at the meter and do the same thing and have a great putt and have a great drive. Just depending on like how far away I am, and like I feel like I'm not changing like what I'm doing to make it feel like okay, now I'm putting, okay, now I'm chipping, whatever that even means. But like that's what bothered me about it. It never felt like I was the one making the decision. It's like okay, we've changed it now to putting mode. Do the same thing you did.
Okay, no, I get that.
And the funny thing is that you can choose as a player to be either a beginner or an expert. And, at first that idea intrigued me, and obviously I stuck with beginner. But when I moved to expert, just to see how the mode worked, I noticed that there really was just it was just hiding game features from me and pretending like that's what being an expert is just knowing that stuff. But instead, it just makes it this way. It doesn't recommend the next club you should use. So it just uses the one you previously selected. And it hides the... how
max
far,
distance.
the max distance. So guess what? I own the manual. I can just look it up. Like you haven't really done anything. Like they actually hide the distance with the words EXPT to reference that you're on expert mode. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to get that information. The game itself has given it to you.
But it's harder to get the information because you got to open the manual.
Yeah, I think the spirit of the concept works. It's just if it's just gonna be in the manual, like that's the substitute for actually have played golf, I guess. Like your dad could have all of that information, as a gist of that information in his head. So you need the manual.
The lesson here is that the next time you need help with your math homework, go to the golf course. There are two modes of play in the game, and that is there's skins and there's stroke. And I said it specifically in that order because I think it's a little dirty the other way around. And the difference being that stroke is more like the kind of golf game you're used to, where you just play the 18 holes, there's a par, and you try and essentially hit the par each time. And if you took 7 strokes on a course, your score is +7, so on and so forth.
Whereas skins is when like you're on the course and you're not playing for money, but so you're trying to have some fun, but you still want there to be some stakes. Like after you lose a hole, you have to take a piece of clothing off.
Close. I know you're joking. But it's funny because it does sound like that. That skins would eventually, or even just shirts versus skins would be a funny mode in this game. But unfortunately, what we got instead was a obscenely detailed betting game inside of this, which makes me feel like they did present an option for two people who are very good at this game to actually play for money, because you can customize the dollar amount that's on the line. You can customize how much each hole is worth, and then it will give you the results as it goes along. And obviously the way that it would work in any such game is that by default, if it's, let's say, $10,000, it makes it so that the starting holes are less expensive than the later holes, and so it doesn't matter if you triple bogey on hole number 1 because you're only losing X amount of dollars, whereas you want to, do your best later on, and you could customize it to be like, I know I'm really good at number 7 and number 12, so I'm going to put more money on those. But then your opponent can say, like, well, I know I'm really good at these holes, and I'm going to put more money on these. And it's very interesting. It's just way too detailed that it actually does make me think that they intended not just to simulate how a game of skins might work, but to also have it be done amongst, NES golfers.
I don't doubt it.
I could see this replacing golf in reality completely.
That's what every golf game is trying to do, right? They release Tiger Woods and now, who is it? Rory McIlroy or whatever his name is.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's the PGA golf games. They release those with the intention of killing PGA golf.
Right, yeah.
Just cannibalizing it altogether. The same reason MLB, the show, is so detailed is why watch baseball anymore. Let's kill that and just have you play it on your PS5 instead.
Yeah, you don't need a pitch counter, pitch timer in the show, pitch clock.
Yeah, it's
what
a pitch clock.
Mike?
It's a pitch
Okay.
clock, but you did make me now, like, I did not play this year's version of the show. You made me wonder if there's a pitch clock.
I would hope not.
Well, they let referees make mistakes in Madden games just this way you can challenge.
That's true. There's no actual holding.
Sean, very early on in this episode, you mentioned that you liked the little quips from Jack between courses. And it's funny because I thought at first that those were going to be like tips. But all the tips are in the manual.
It's just like, oh, this is my favorite hyper-specific thing in all of golf. And
Sean,
like,
he literally says, this is my favorite par 4, and then like 3 courses later he goes, this is my favorite par 3. That's not even color.
No. It's like, this is my favorite short par 4 with X modifier. Like, that these are like the subgenres of holes. Like, not just like, oh, par 4, par 5. I mean, he also has them that just like, oh, this is just like my favorite ever. But they get super specific. Like, this is my favorite par 4 that you have to like, that you have to hit really hard on the first one, but like really softly on the second one.
Now, do you think they selected all the courses and then just like called Jack's agent and said, can you just get his thoughts on these?
His thought. I don't know if he actually wrote these. Yeah.
Like, one of them is just, quote, longest par 4 in major championship golf, unquote. But like, that's not like a
fact,
Jack Nicklaus thing. That's not like his opinion or something. He just, he I don't know, I was going to say he Wikipedia'd it. He encyclopedia'd it when they called him and then just spit out a fact.
You can play up to 4 players in a game of golf, and that's 4 human players. And there's no multi-tap required, so kudos for that, I suppose. But I didn't look back at all of our other golf games to confirm whether that's unique or not. But I guess, like, 4-player games in general amaze me this early on because I really thought, like, 4-player wasn't a thing until the 64-bit.
How do you get, like, somebody to play defense if there's only, like, one controller?
You mean the other people who are trying to, they're on the course and they're trying to whack your golf ball back if you hit it towards them? Yeah. You're thinking of field hockey.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for these games. Like, even isn't, I can't think of it right now, but I feel like if there's only one player playing at a time and you're just alternating, like, you could have 16 players.
Which they should, right? I mean, aren't there like 64 people that compete in the in the golf majors? Like, should just be able to keep entering them, and yeah, it'll be the longest game of golf in your life. But just keep going.
Just keep doing it.
This is a little bit before the sequels and spin-off side, but I thought it was worth just a little commentary on Jack himself. It's worth mentioning that the guy has won more majors than anybody else in the history of golf, and that surprised me. Because I would have thought that Tiger had that surely, but he has it at 18 majors, but he's tied for third in wins. So I was like, all right, who's number one in wins? And it's actually a tie for who has the most wins of all time. Exactly 82 between Tiger Woods and Sam Snead, who played from 1936 to 1965. No real like stat or thought here on that. Just funny that Tiger Woods won exactly the same amount. Like a tie for first on exactly the same amount of wins does feel a little strange, especially when they're separated between so many eras of golf.
Yeah. Well, how many times did Jack Nicklaus get to regionals?
That's a good question. I really don't have the answer for you there. But Jack also played for 25 years, and Tiger played so far for 24 years. Remains to be seen if he'll continue competing. So I guess that also solidifies Jack pretty soon as the best golf majors player with 18, because it's like home runs in baseball. Technically no one's hit more than 60 because Babe Ruth did it in X amount of games, and then everybody who ever hit 61 or more did it in 162 game seasons. On the sequels and spinoff side, a couple different notes here about this particular game. There was obviously a PC version first, and that's why I think this game looks so much like a PC version. And that came out a lot earlier than this one, maybe 4 years beforehand, 1986, 87. But a TurboGrafx 16 version of the game came out called Jack Nicklaus's Turbo Golf. And it's the same exact game. They just thought because it's on the TurboGrafx, they could call it Turbo Golf. However, it's not the TurboGrafx everywhere in the world. It's also known as the PC Engine, same system if you didn't know. And there it was titled Jack Nicklaus's World Golf Tour. So I guess because that's the international version, the PC Engine, it had more of a world appeal to it. So it got the World Golf Tour. This is me really just trying to make this section interesting. If you haven't been able
it's
to tell.
good. I would just hope that in those versions, the course loaded faster. I hope that if you're on the PC, it doesn't take this long.
Yeah, it's CD-ROM, so you would hope so, but I actually think it would be longer, right? On a CD-ROM, it's spinning and everything. I don't
think it's loading data. I think it's actually trying to make calculations and draw not polygons, but I think it's more of a processor thing, or maybe a memory mapper.
Jack Nicklaus's greatest 18 holes of major championship golf at the time was considered the longest title for any video game. I'm pretty sure it no longer has that distinction, but it's worth.
Did you make that up?
I did not make that up. It's even
that
it
was
even
one
has
of
a
the facts
source
that
next
Jack
to it.
Nicklaus read in the middle of one of the holes.
Yeah, he actually says that after you if you beat the game with a perfect score.
Wow.
They did make a bunch of Jack Nicklaus games. They got all the way up to Jack Nicklaus 6 Golden Bear Challenge, which sounds like it became, instead of golfing, he just switched careers over to hunting or something and started hunting the golden bear. Clearly not the truth, though. Obviously, there's golden bear must be a reference to some course or particular hole or whatever. So that's the challenge.
Let's not even look that up and just go with that.
Yeah. And then there's Jack Nicklaus's Golf and Course Design Signature Edition CD Compendium. Now, that might be longer than the Jack Nicklaus's greatest 18 holes of major championship golf. So he clearly usurped himself with the world's longest title for a video game. What does even half of this mean?
Okay, go slowly. Say it again.
Okay, Jack Nicklaus, we know who that is, right? That's the guy, the man that met the legend, most major championships. Golf and Course Design. Okay, so Jack Nicklaus Golf, I'm going to assume, right? It's Jack Nicklaus's golf, and then it's also a course designer, right? It's not you're not designing anything about golf, you're just designing the courses. So let's interpret it.
You can't add new rules.
Yeah, so Jack Nicklaus Golf and Course Design Signature Edition.
So this is... But do we think that there was a Jack Nicklaus Golf and Course Design OG?
Yes, I that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the Signature Edition. Now he fake autographed the box.
Okay.
So that's that. CD.
Yes.
Okay, now CD I think there's some conjecture here because I'm looking at the box and I just see CD-ROM, like playable directly from CD-ROM sticker. I don't see. Oh no, I do see where CD is. Okay, never mind. CD is part of the official title. It's well hidden. I give them credit for that. Actually, it's so well hidden that I would call this game Jack Nicklaus Golf and Course Design Signature Edition CD Image of a Disc Compendium. Because there's also an image of a disc behind this. And then Compendium. So apparently Compendium was added as well. So there was a Signature Edition, and then they added Signature Edition Compendium. Is this all just DLC stuff? Is this all just like, let's just keep adding more courses?
It sounds like this is just a collection of all the different versions of this course designer with like pre-made courses. I hope you still get to make your own courses, because that sounds pretty cool. Maybe that you could never do that, and that's just a part of the title and not a description of what happens in the game. I don't know. You're the one with the information, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's just to, really talk about how many courses they included. It's 15 courses, which I guess on CD is pretty damn cool, because if you think about that, it's 15 times 18 is how many holes you'll play. But the course design thing is not something that I have any screenshots of, although, of course, little golf humor, you must be able to design, like make your own courses in this game. Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
I want to create a course where the green is on top of an impossibly steep hill. And so most of we'll make it like a 5-par, just to make it seem a little balanced. But
you do get to make your own courses. Breaking news. It says on the back of the box, still thirsting for more acres of green? Get creative and use the design mode to devise your own personalized course. You could even copy your local course right down to the divot. You wouldn't download a golf course. With 256 color VGA graphics and intense sound effects, you can almost smell the grass cuttings. I think that's really funny. Intense sound effects mixed with you can smell grass cuttings.
I mean, based on the description that we had at the beginning of this game, I don't know how trusting I am in like the realism that they're trying to describe.
Joe, they put a photo-real Jack Nicklaus as the character that swings.
Wow, we've made it.
It's like an
was
FMV style.
This was after Mortal Kombat?
Yes, this is
okay. Cool. Yeah,
this is 92.
Just confirming.
Yep. All good. So that's Jack Nicklaus's greatest 18 holes of major championship golf. But here's Nostalgia's greatest essential games list vote of all time CD Compendium Signature Edition.
Image of disc.
I have no doubts in my mind that people enjoyed this game when it came out. I just don't think it's holding up today. I feel like a game like NES Golf, which we have talked about a lot, but also have just, I think it was like in our top 5 games of the launch games, held up a lot better because of how simple it is. On the NES, sometimes going simple is the way to longevity. It's the way to replayability. It's the way to become a classic, because nobody quite likes doing math or having trouble visualizing where exactly you are on the hole, and then if you need to figure it out, you go to a top-down view, and then you go back and you realize it all has to load in again, and by the time it's finished loading, you're like, wait, what was I doing before this? So you go back to the top-down view, knowing that it's going to have to load in again. So then you say, okay, well, the ball was a little bit to the flag was a little bit to the right of this, or the green was a little bit to the right of this, or, oh, shit, wait, what was it? So you go back to the top-down view, let it all load in again, do the swing the shot, and it goes in the fucking sand, and you're like, thank God I'm playing on an emulator, might as well just rewind. And you're like, wait a minute, they can't rewind in golf, and this is going for ultra-realistic simulation, so am I really even playing the game the way it was designed? And then you start having some kind of existential crisis, and that's not good for any kind of essential game. Essential games they should be challenging, but they should be challenging in a way that is fun and comfy and makes you want to continue to challenge yourself. I did, I think, 9 holes of Jack Nicklaus's golf. Before I never finished a course, I guess. Is it a course? What do you call 18 holes?
It's a course.
Yeah. Never finished a full course. And I got my fill thinking, I don't need to get par. I'm okay with being triple bogey or whatever I wind up being, because that's just the kind of golf game they made for me. The kind of game where I'm either going to have to spend a ton of time or I'm going to keep putting and missing and getting close. And then I'm so close that I can't possibly miss, so I just get it in, but it doesn't feel good because I had a chance to get it in from like 19 feet away, and I just didn't understand how the meters worked, so I didn't quite do it. You could chalk that up to me not understanding the game, but I think the game doesn't understand its core player base. Sean?
That was very profound. I'm going to use this time in the Essential Games List vote to continue describing the course I would make in Jack Nicklaus Course Designer as I was rudely interrupted while I was describing it before. And I don't want you to be deprived of this fun golf hole thing. So it's like a big hill in the middle of the fairway, and it's like an impossibly steep angle, like you would have to like hit at max power with like a wedge just to get it up there, and you'd probably need like the wind to help you too. But like that's not where it stops. The green itself is all at a pretty, not like a steep whatever you call it, grade, but enough that if you were to like just miss it a little bit, your ball would then fall off of this like plateau that we've created, and the hole is at the top of this plateau, and on like right in front of the hole are these sort of like very misleading sort of gutters. Like they would sort of kind of like, so that if water went in, it would just sort of, it would drain it away, but it would just take your ball, if you weren't precise enough, and just filter it right off the plateau. And I would just like to see if anyone could actually make that hole. Also, it would give actual golfers the feeling that I feel whenever I play golf, because to me, it's physically impossible. On the other hand, the game itself, not great, not the worst, but not essential.
Joe.
So I always try to separate the part of myself that just doesn't enjoy sports games. It's just a fact about me. I don't enjoy them, but I try to like look at these things objectively and factor that out and decide like, okay, what was good about this game and what wasn't. And I really think this is bad. I do. I don't know. I like, maybe there are some redeeming qualities, but like I don't feel like I'm golfing in this game. It takes so long to load everything. I can't visualize what's going on. Maybe it's just because I'm not a golfer, but like I had so much more fun with other golf games that makes me think either I'm just such a casual that this isn't doing it for me, or this is doing something wrong. So I am going to say this is not an essential game.
All right, there you have it. Different coloring opinions there, but if whether you agree with the Essential Games List votes or not, or whether you agree with Sean's course design or not, please give us more feedback about Sean's course. I was a Joe's course design. Joe, do you have a course that you want to talk us through?
Sure.
I don't want people to think that was deleted from the show.
All I want is to make a full golf course size mini golf course. So like you're just golfing normally, but there's like actual real size windmills, and like instead of a little loop-de-loop, maybe there's a little like roller coaster that takes you like 40 yards, and all kinds of little like things. There's like a big clown that like swallows up your ball, and like all kinds of things like that.
And live animals.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Jack Nicklaus was going for simulation, and he's got water and sand, but like where are the windmills and shit like that?
And the course pigeons. Every golf course that I've gone to has at least like a couple flocks of course pigeons that you have to avoid.
Yeah, and the spectators who run on and try to like steal your ball.
The defensemen.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, we are not playing any more golf. We'll be playing a game called Kid Cool. Spelled with a K, so you know he's cool. I guess look forward to that. And if you're not
sound
looking...
so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, if you're not looking for... Well, K with a cool is one of those things that, like, doesn't fly anymore, right? Like, it's so dated to put K's on things to make
I
them
think
cool.
the Gen Zs have made it cool again.
With a K?
Yes.
I think it would be like Kid Zool with a Z because they're, Gen Z and all that. Shows how well I know them. I'm really in touch with that base.
That wasn't very based of you.
Yeah, for real. Anyway, if you're not into Kid Cool and you weren't into Jack Nicklaus, don't worry. There will be good episodes of Nostalgia again, but there will also be a whole nother show. You might have heard of it, Nostalgia Bites. It's only on Patreon, patreon.com/nostalgia. And believe it or not, we're up to our 20th episode already, which means we've done 20 months of this. So we're dedicated. You thought like, man, they've been doing the regular show for 286 months, or 286 weeks, but there's no way they're going to commit to the podcast, the other one. And it's like, nope, we are. And we're on our 20th month, and we're playing a big one, the very first original Fire Emblem, which, believe it or not, has an official translation. So it's pretty cool. It just never came to the States back then. It only came out like for Nintendo Switch or whatever. So we're going to touch base on that one. We're going to talk about it. But again, it's only for those cool people who join us at patreon.com/nostalgia. You also get the Discord. You also get to personally meet Kid Cool. He will come to your house and
we're doing an AMA on the Discord.
Yeah, with Kid Cool, and he'll come to your house, give you tickets to a Kid Cool game show, and you'll be able to win awesome prizes. We're working out the details on that one, so don't subscribe for that, but that could happen. It might just be Sean dressed up like Kid Cool coming to your house, but you'd have to give us your address. And it might be me with the video camera pretending like I'm not me, but you wouldn't know it was me anyway because you don't know me.
But they know you.